Hello, I hope you're doing well today. My name is Ian Green, and I'm the musician for Music Dreams and also for Ian J. Green, two different artist profiles you can find wherever you stream your music. And today I'm going to be working on helping supplement a little bit further on the topic of chords, which is Unit 11, specifically Part 6 in a tutorial series that I'm creating to help supplement the wonderful material in the Intermediate Elementary Music Rudiments textbook written by Mark Sarnecki. Now, as we've been looking at chords so far, we've figured out, first of all, and found how to create chord major and minor chords, how to find root position and the inversions of chords, and also we've learned about open versus closed position chords. So now we're going to tie all of this information together. Now, of course, a lot of these concepts are helpful because it helps to see music in a slightly different way. But something that's really interesting is how we can create music that and understand how music is written. So this is going to be kind of fun. When we look at a piece of music, especially, for example, with piano music, like we have here on page 82 in the textbook, which is a short excerpt from a piano piece by Mr. Muzio Clementi, we can see how there is a very set organized group of notes in the treble clef for the right hand and in the bass clef for the left hand. And when we play the music together, we essentially create a piece. But the interesting thing is that we are creating melodies and chords simultaneously while also staying within a certain key and set of chords within the piece. So all of that helps to dissect or unpack the complexity of how Western music theory has advanced over the last number of hundreds of years to the point we have now where we can appreciate harmony and chords and scales together simultaneously, sometimes without even realizing that we're enjoying that. Now, what we're going to be looking at here is how broken chords as a solid or broken pattern, chord patterns, create the sound of a piece. So when we play the melody and the chords together, it sounds very pleasant because the music is matching. The triad or the chord that is matched in the left hand also matches with the right hand. Now, sometimes chords can be organized in broken patterns, but the reduction or the blocked pattern is when we take those broken chord pattern notes and we put them into a solid position. So you can see how in this first example we have a broken chord pattern on F major, which is like this. That's for the first bar, but we can play it as a solid chord. Same thing for bar 2. Or, now when we get to the next bar, we have C, F, A, going to C, E, G. Now if we know from our inversions of chords, we have the gap on the bottom note of this, 2 notes of this chord. So this is a second inversion chord of F major, going to a root position chord of C major, and then back we go to F major, but as an open position chord. So it's kind of neat, isn't it, to see how the chords are organized that way. Now, sometimes in piano music, we also have busy chords where instead of having triplets or having broken triads, root, third, fifth, kind of like we had in the previous example, now we have a chord where we have a different rhythmic pattern in the left hand, but the same basic triad spelling. Those notes, C, G, E, G, if you play them as a triad, is the basic triad of C major. When we play this music together on page 83, it sounds very lovely, very classical, but very nice. Now, the thing to think about is how to and how to dissect this information is to first know what the scale of this chord of the key signature of the piece is, and also if you see a chord pattern like this, and if it's a broken chord pattern, you can shrink it down or bring it down to the closed solid position of the chord. And especially if it's a chord where there's a lot of, different notes going all throughout more than one octave of material, you can then turn it into the closed position to see what type of chord it is. That's part of the analysis of music, is to take material and shrink it down into the smallest version so that you can understand what the harmonic language or the musical language is of the composer as they write the music. Now, this is kind of an interesting one here. The left-hand accompaniment for this Brahms waltz uses another broken chord pattern. This is a common accompaniment for a waltz. It's a broken chord pattern in the sense that we're not playing specific, like broken chords with eighth notes, but we're using a bass note first and then a chord afterwards. Now, if we were to play this whole chord as one group, you would play all those notes together. But because that's very difficult to do with the hand span of the average person, with waltz accompaniment, the bass note is usually played first, and then another chord is played slightly higher on the piano. So you can get that 1, 2, 3 accompaniment pattern. But this specific type of example still uses a type of chord quality and chord inversion, just in a fancy way. The same can be said about the material on the next page. You can see here, this is kind of getting into more intricate music, but there's an interesting arpeggio or broken chord pattern in the left hand here of this piece by Mr. Frédéric Chopin, but the accompaniment is a broken chord of C sharp minor. In this case, these two chord patterns that we just looked at are open position because the notes go beyond one octave. So even just being able to, when you're looking at a piece of music, to dissect, is the chord in open position or closed position? And also, is the chord in a specific inversion? Those are the most important things to think about when you're trying to decide on what type of chord is being used and how it's being played. You can usually tell if a chord is in open position because the span of the notes is very large, as I've described in another tutorial. And then as soon as you know if that is the case, then we can decide on what the closed position chord is as well. Now let's look at a couple of different examples on page 84. And we can decide on what chord pattern is being used here. What we want to do is think about the chord pattern and then match up the scale, the root chord note, the type, if it's major or minor, the position, and also the scale degree. Meaning the scale degree, the note that this chord is decorating from the scale itself. So in this first example, we are in 4 sharps. So we can think of this as the major key for each example. So that's going to help simplify things a little bit. So we know the key signature of 4 sharps is E major. So we can put that down here first. This is the homework that's on page 84. Now in this chord we have written, it's always best when we have the time to do so, is to write the chord in root position as a closed position chord. And I'll even do that just with whole notes even to make it more easy to see. So the chord we have here is E, G sharp, and B. So the root is E. And the quality is major because this matches the E major scale. The position is root position because of the way that this chord is organized. And the scale degree in the scale of E major is the tonic note. This is the first note of the scale. That was kind of an easy example, but it's good to start easy. Okay, so let's go to the next one. We're going to be now in 3 flats. So the major scale with 3 flats is E flat major, B flat, E flat, A flat. So the key of that scale is going to be E flat major. Now the root of the chord that's given here, if we were to take this note, set of notes, you can see how it goes beyond an octave. It's kind of spread out. We're going to have B flat, D, and F. So the notes of this chord, the basic notes of the closed position chord are B flat, D, and F. So the root of the chord is B flat. And the type, these notes match the major scale because there are no accidentals written. So this is going to be a major triad. Now the position, that's the interesting thing, is that because we're in the scale of E flat major, but the chord we're given is B flat, we want to think about where B flat is in the E flat major scale. What note is that? So we want to go over to the piano and find that. So we start on E flat as the tonic. First note, second note, third note, fourth note, fifth note. So the position of this chord is a root position chord, but the degree or the scale degree of this chord of B flat major is the dominant or 5th note of the E flat major scale. So first what we wanted to do was decide on what the type of chord was. So what is the root of the chord, the type or quality, and also the root, and then the position as well. Then we go back to the original key to see how this chord fits within the scale of E flat major. Let's do another example together. We're going to be looking now at the scale that has 2 sharps, major scale of 2 sharps, which is D major. Now, let's look at this chord here, and we'll see how we have a G, which is the lowest note. We have a B. We actually even write that even 1 octave lower to make it even easier to see. We'll draw a G, a B, and an E, crossing out the notes as we go. G, there's a B, there's another G here, so we don't have to write that again. There's an E, and then these are all the same. So G, B, and E. Now, based on the way that this chord is organized, there's a gap on the top. So this position is going to be a first inversion chord. So if we take this top note and move it down, the root of this chord is E. Now, if we were to match and play the notes of E major, that would have to include a G sharp, but there's no G sharp in this case, so this is going to be an E minor chord. So I'll write that here, just to erase that little squiggle and fix that. Now, that is the quality of the chord in the key of D major. Now we want to go back to the scale of D major to think about where and what scale degree E minor is in the scale of D major. So if we think of this, go back to if we go back to the piano keyboard here and play the scale of D major, D is the tonic note, E is the supertonic or the second note. So therefore, the scale degree, with using functional chord symbols or Roman numerals, is to scale degree 2. Because it's a minor chord, we're going to be using a lowercase 2 to signify the chord of this bar as it relates to this scale. that is some of the interesting parts of harmony that are really fun, but kind of challenging, but also really keep us logically thinking about music. Because when you think about how scales, intervals, chords, and how all of these things work together, it's really quite an intricate web of information that all supports itself. And all the different ideas support each other. If you know the scale that you're in, you can then decide on what notes are in the scale. You can then think about the scale degrees that are in the scale, and also the chords that match with those scale degrees. As well, if you're trying to decide on what type of chord you're using in a song, as long as you know what the scale is, you can match that information to see how that chord relates to the scale that it's in. So it's all kind of encompassing together. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this tutorial was helpful, and I look forward to seeing you next time for another video. Please check out the other tutorials on this channel. There's lots of material coming available soon, and there's lots of material already published on various topics. Thank you for your support, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.